Lily with Living Room Realty in Portland, Oregon, here to give you a real estate market update for the month of June 2024. So as said there, it does feel like since we had that huge burst of activity the last few months that led to crazy price jumps and all of those fun things, we've started to see the data and everything kind of even out a little bit. And we're seeing more normalcy return to our market and even, higher level of predictability of what's going to happen with certain homes, which is really great for you home buyers. We'll talk a little bit more about this. And I'll even say for some of you home sellers as well, as much as it's fun to see house prices just jump like crazy, having that ability to predict what could happen with your home can be really nice. So, on that note, we were seeing the last few months here that especially, beginning of spring where prices were just, not in every home, of course, but on most properties you were seeing, or a good deal of properties, you were seeing the prices, let's say a home started at $650. All of a sudden it was selling for not only $750, but going above that range. Well, we're still seeing that happen on some properties in the coolest, hottest areas. In general, prices have caught up to that number. I remember talking to clients about this when we were writing offers on homes that were getting those crazy numbers. I said, hey, if you're not in a rush, no worries here. That's what's going to happen right at this moment. If you can't compete with those prices, yes, prices are going to stay around that range, but at least we'll be more aware and things will catch up. So what I mean by that is, now because we have the comparables showing that a house isn't going to sell for $650, but rather $750 or higher, listings are actually getting put on the market at that $750 price point, which then makes you aware of what a house is actually going to sell for. That might be already above your budget. You won't even have to bother and go see that property. Things have caught up, basically. So that's been really helpful, again, just for buyers. I will say too, in the last few months, we've seen houses that maybe have been sitting on the market still get multiple offers, things like that. I'm not seeing that as much. It still happens, of course, but not as much. In my recent, contracts we've gotten under contract, for those, typically we've been the only offer, or maybe we're competing against another offer, but it's not as surprising as it was in that market where, again, I had, property 2 months ago that I got 4 offers after being on the market for like 40 days. So we're seeing less of that. So good news for you home buyers. And then again, I think it also is good news for you home sellers to some degree to have a little bit more predictability to the market, knowing what your house is going to sell for. Because it's great if it's listed at $650 and sells for $750, but you don't know if that's actually going to be the case. So being able to have those more predictive numbers and predictive data that actually is now caught up with the market will be really, really helpful for everybody. On to the numbers. So we did see an increase of activity across the board again, but we didn't see a huge jump in the numbers. I mean, new listings is great. We saw an increase of 12% with 3,500 homes hitting the market. Pending sales only saw a slight increase, about 2%, so really marginal there, but that was an increase to 2,363 homes going under contract. Sold homes saw a pretty decent increase of 13% with 2,140 homes going to new homeowners. And then inventory stayed pretty stable there around that 2.5 months mark. So shows, buyer demand is staying pretty stable even with interest rates staying high. Again, it's not the same demand we maybe saw a few months ago, but it's still staying pretty stable. And on the seller side, obviously sellers are still motivated. We've really been waiting for sellers to be motivated, and we definitely could use a lot more seller motivation because the buyer demand is there. But with that 12% increase in new listings, it shows, sellers are paying attention. They're learning that buyers are out there and want to buy their house, and to home sellers that are thinking about selling and are willing to buy it for a really good price. So good news all around there. And then average sales price has stayed pretty stable. We're still around that $600,000 mark. Interesting thing to note there. I think that's kind of where we've been at the last few years. I know at least for the last few months, we've been kind of stably, we went into the 600 range, and that's where it stays, even with higher interest rates, even with all the other things that have happened over the last few years. One interesting thing to note that's actually just came to my brain, I wasn't planning to talk about this. I saw a recent statistic about election years and what happens to home prices. I don't have the data right in front of me because I didn't plan to talk about this, but they did note, I think it was like out of the last 11 election cycles, home prices actually increased 9 of those times. Again, I don't know what the actual numbers are, but I'm pretty sure that was kind of what it was. Point there being that during an election cycle, we actually, for the most part, have seen home prices increase. So if you are wondering what's going to happen, obviously this is a very abnormal election coming up. Well, that's kind of all I'll say there. But good to know. I do think if you're someone who's thinking of selling your house, there is probably going to be, historically, we do see some hesitancy around making action decisions around buying or selling when it comes to being around an election. Obviously, that'll also come during some of our slow seasons, what have you. I'll talk about that more when we come into that. But yeah, which that was an interesting thing to note when I talked about home prices and average home prices. And then kind of to go on actually to market trends, this is what I want to talk about a little bit today, is just what we can expect for the rest of the summer. So it honestly right now feels like our summer market came a little early. We predicted it was going to stay really heavy, and I think it will. But I've just noticed in the last few weeks, again, it's gotten a little bit calmer. I noticed that at our team meeting today at Living Room. We put up all of the deals people got, done for their clients over the last week or so. And a lot of the properties were 1, 2, maybe 3 offers, or they were the only offer. So yeah, it just doesn't feel as super active. And I think that's what we'll see going through the rest of the summer is people who are serious about buying or selling are going to buy and sell. I have had a decent amount of people reach out in the last few weeks on the buyer side wanting to buy. I've also had a talk with a few people who are looking to sell. In a lot of those cases, it is people that either are just like, hey, I want to make my home buying dreams come true and I'm not willing to wait on that. And then on the sell side, it's people that are kind of, in a situation where they need to sell, move on to a different space. And so that's what we'll probably see continue as we go through. Things will probably slow down fairly decently in August, as that just always kind of happens. People get in the summer mindset. Maybe that's actually what's happening right now too. We had a very slow start to summer, and I think everybody's just like, let's go enjoy summer. So I think we'll see similar trends there, where it'll probably slow down pretty heavily in August. If you are someone who's planning to buy a house in around that time, I have someone in mind actually right now, no worries. That is also a really good time as a buyer to find good opportunities. I find, around that time is when you're going to see stuff sit on the market for some time. And it's also when a seller might be really motivated when it comes to what they have going on next, if they're trying to move to a different school district, things of that nature. So it can be a really good time for you to buy. Same thing honestly goes on the seller side. If you are someone who's thinking of selling your house and that time works out for you, no, you're maybe not going to get the same price you would get in early spring, or even we'll talk here in a second about what happens in the fall. But you'll still get a good price for your house, and the buyers that are out there at that time of the year are typically going to be the most serious because they're willing to go out in the hottest season of the year and go and buy houses instead of being on gorgeous Hag Lake or something like that. So, and that last little part there I just mentioned quick is that, fall is when things will pick up again. Typically in our market, the fall is actually one of our busiest seasons as people kind of get in that new school spirit and get really engaged in buying and in selling. And personally, I like when I'm on the buyer's side having people buy that time of year, because rainy season is a really good time to see any issues that come up with a property. So hope all of this was helpful. I had 5 other things I wanted to maybe bring up, but maybe I'll do a follow-up video there. And yeah, again, hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions for me or want to chat about your spring, or not spring, I don't know, your 2024 home buying or home selling plans, I am here for you. And yeah, you can find my contact information below. And also feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I'm going to stop before I make more errors. All right, bye.